Welcome to Reshaping Leicester Tigers, episode 3, and probably appropriate that we speak to, can I call you the man at the helm in terms of reshaping Leicester Tigers? Steve, is that an appropriate title?
No, head coach.
Head coach. Head coach will do then. Right, so we've spoken to Andrea and Peter. We've spoken to Scott Clark, who's largely based around getting the club back into the community. Now let's talk about what everyone wants to talk about, which is rugby. Now you are in charge of the Leicester Tigers rugby program. You have been for a little while now. There's been a lot of change. We've addressed a lot of that moving forward. But what we've not really done is actually sat down and asked you about you, because admittedly, be honest, you don't really want to talk about yourself, do you?
Not really, no.
No, but I'm forcing you to do it today. So that's where we're going with it. That's just what we're doing. So I'm very interested in one very early question in terms of why you actually moved into coaching originally after playing. What was the original reason for you?
What's the original reason for me? I love coaching. Why do I love coaching? I like helping people. I really like helping people. So the thing I enjoyed most about being a captain was you were helping your teammates, and I had always feeling they were better. They were better for me being a leader there and helping them than if I hadn't been. So I enjoy helping. There was, when I decided to retire, I had opportunities to go into the business world. I'd been asked to continue playing. My club wanted me to continue playing for another year. And Eddie Jones had asked me to go and coach in Japan. And for the previous 2 seasons, I'd been going out to Japan and coaching the Japan team, and loved my experiences there. Loved coaching the team. And I think probably one of the key moments was we were in November 2012. We were playing away in Bucharest. This is Japan versus Romania. And Japan hadn't won in Europe for many, many years. And I think it was more than 20 games they hadn't won in Europe. And usually just got beaten by the bigger packs. And Eddie was turning around the Japan team. And I remember that we beat Romania. And I remember the team celebrating on the field. And me being stood, I was captain of Saracens at the time, and I was stood off the field, and they were all celebrating together, and coaches were, and I took great satisfaction that these guys were having such enjoyment, so filled up and won that game. And I felt I'd played a small part in it, and I think I don't try to believe it, I think it was a small part, because Eddie was the one shaping this journey. And from my point, I really enjoyed watching that team celebrate. I took a lot of satisfaction out of that team enjoying having achieved something that perhaps they hadn't thought they could.
Let's shift all the way forward to 12 months ago. Why was the time right for you to become a head coach?
Well, I think I wanted a new challenge. Clearly, I wanted to have won with England the World Cup. I got a silver medal as a player, and I got a silver medal as a coach, and invested in that for a lot of years. Unfortunately, Aled has the gold medal and likes to wear it into the club each day. But at the time, I think the time was right post World Cup for me to look at a new challenge and take another step in my coaching career. And then the opportunity at Leicester Tigers appeared.
Why Tigers? Because I would imagine, without being presumptuous, you would have had a few opportunities. There would have been a few jobs that you potentially had on the table, or if you'd, as things do happen in the background, gone out and looked at jobs or been interested in jobs. Why was Tigers the job?
I think that in terms of the clubs, the club is a great club. The size of it, you don't need me to tell you about the size of this. The people who are Leicester Tigers supporters will know the size of this club better than I will. I think the opportunity then, this is a club that's fallen on very hard times, performance-wise, and effectively has dropped to the bottom of the league. Now, the challenge and the opportunity is to get it from the bottom back to the top. And those kind of opportunities don't come along very often. It's a massive challenge. There's a lot of work to do, but it excites me.
This is a bit of an odd question, so I'm intrigued to see what you tell me out of it. How do you differ? And it might be one I should probably ask family of you, but I'm intrigued to ask you, how do you differ after losing to when you win? What's different about you in the 24 hours after a loss and after a win?
Probably better off asking other people. Everyone's motivated by different things, and some people think only about winning. Some people think about not losing, and everyone's in different ways. I'm very, very clear what I am where it goes, but inevitably, whatever happens, whatever the result, that evening after a game, that evening my head's already on the next game. That was the same. It was the same with me as a player. We'd play on a Saturday afternoon. On Saturday night, I'd be sat in my living room, computer out, the team that were playing the next week, started watching them. Never dwelt too much on games, always took the lessons that we need to take and move on. So same as a coach, very, very quickly on to the next game.
When you were appointed, I'm stealing, I think, Ben Youngs's quote, but he said you were the most detailed coach he'd worked with. And he's obviously had a fair few coaches, club level, international level, Lions, whatever it may be. People have repeated that throughout the whole time. George Ford said it. Various people have said it. I'm intrigued to think or hear what your interpretation of that is. What makes you the most detailed coach? And people constantly use that word with you, detailed. Is it purely down to the fact that you work longer or harder? Or what's your interpretation of when people use that word about you?
It's my interpretation of it. I don't necessarily think about that. I think about being well prepared, and I think that's the thing. You want to be well prepared, and you want the team to be well prepared, and that doesn't mean you give them every piece of information, because that's what I've had coaches who do that. They just sort of dump information on you. That ain't. It's about packaging it, understanding what's the most pertinent ones, what's the best ones, what's the priorities, the pieces of information they need so that the team is well prepared. And that's what we keep doing, is trying to get there when the team goes on the field, or whenever that kickoff time is, you want the team being as well prepared as they possibly can be. And that's my job as a coach, to put the players in a position where they can go and perform close to or at their very best. Before
we get off the topic of you, because I appreciate you don't want to do too much when we talk about the Tigers, when you look back the better part of 6 months now as a head coach, what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself as a coach?
Biggest thing? Oh, crikey. As a coach, there's a million and one different things each day. Is just a new learning experience that you keep trying to take those lessons and move on. And it's hard to summarize the biggest one. What I would say to you is that learning, that as soon as you think, even if that little thought in the back of your mind comes, oh, that was good. Oh, that was good. Yeah, got that sorted. You're about to get a big kick up the arse. That's the reality. You just got to be constantly thinking, right, how can we do it better? How can we find a new way? What's different? What's going on? What's the next aspect of rugby? Because rugby's always changing, and you've got to be thinking that the whole time. So I think, going back to your question, what have I learned about myself as a coach? What's the biggest thing I've learned as a coach, or how you phrased it? I think the learning is the biggest thing. The learning and the hunger to be better. The players want coaches who can help them get better. The coaches have to constantly make sure that they can make them better, help them get better, help them achieve their goals.
Okay, so let's talk about the squad. Before we do, Yes or no? You don't have to go into detail. Are you enjoying it?
Yes.
Lovely. Good news. Right. The phrase "New Look Leicester Tigers" was coined around July. I can't remember who came up with it. They might be a marketing genius of sorts, but that's fine. It was used. I want to know, when you go back to July, when you first arrived and you had a couple of days and you saw the training go, and yes, it was very different under COVID. What was the biggest thing that needed changing at the club?
I'm intrigued. Wasn't it you who came up with that? You tried to allude to yourself as being a marketing genius.
Oh, that's lovely. It's nice that you use those words, because I've got the clip now of you saying you are a marketing genius. That's fine. That's fine. You walked into it. Let's roll with it. Take me back to July. What was the biggest, and let me steal some quotes. You've talked about the fact that the team used to go away and fall away at games. That's always something you do like to repeat. You've talked a lot about hard work being something that you needed to implement. There's various things you allude to, but I'm intrigued as to what you thought early on in the first week, or even if it's weeks. What was that immediate first change that you went, right, this is the thing that I need to have an impact on now?
Yeah, hard work.
Talk me through that a little bit more, because you've played at different clubs, you've coached different teams. Rugby players work hard naturally. They're professional sports people. But what was it? When you say hard work, is it, if that makes sense, talk me through a little bit more about what that means.
Well, that means, I think firstly, there's got to be a clear standard of what's expected. One day, and it might well have been the first day, when I wanted to watch and learn a bit more about players, that on that day, I asked a group of players, one of the training groups, asked them to leave the field, because the standard with which they were performing and their attitudes to it wasn't of the sufficient standard that I expected. And the players' response has been magnificent since then. Since we said, this is the way we work, this is the way we go about things, and it's the only way we go about things, that we're not going to achieve anything unless we work exceptionally hard, and we've got to find a way of working harder than anybody else, because we're behind all the other clubs. That's the reality. I joined a club that's behind all the other clubs. The only team that was lower in the table was Saracens, and the only reason they were lower because they'd been penalised for the other irregularities they got involved in. Now, so we need to work harder than everybody else, and for me as a coach, there is about setting that standard and expectations and being unrelenting in that regard. Also giving it absolutely clear direction. People can work hard. You can work hard, but it can be aimless. So we've got to have clear direction. We're not just working hard for the sake of working hard. We're working hard in a specific direction, and this is how it fits together. This is what we're doing. This is what we're trying to achieve. And I think that probably, I thought I worked hard as a player. I thought I trained hard. I remember when I went to Japan and saw how, and I'll use that period again to talk about, and I saw the way Eddie Jones was transforming a team in Japan, was how hard they worked. I'd never seen anything like it. And until you're exposed to those kind of things, you don't know. People don't know where the bodies can go. People don't know until they're exposed to it. And you've got to keep breaking down those little barriers. We're very privileged at Leicester Tigers to have Aled Walters work with the team, who's a phenomenal coach. And his ability to get the players to go that little bit further, that's extraordinary.
We've had this conversation before, and I'm picking up on what you're talking about, but Aled Walters as a coach. Now, traditionally speaking, people don't necessarily call the head of physical performance a coach. You constantly make that reference. What is it that makes him the coach or a coach?
Well, the ability he has to get players to find a bit more, the ability he has to help to move players to change them, to change their behaviors, and him to take them along that journey. That's the transformation. I think you see in a lot of players, down to the work he's done and the work he's done, and the other coaches that assist him in that regard has been fantastic. But his ability to get players to find a bit more and to want to find a bit more is brilliant.
Are we starting to see, because there has been a lot of, so I'm stealing some of your numbers, right? Your stats, because as you say, let's be well prepared. 2/3 of your squad have played 20 games or less for Leicester Tigers. You've had 2/3 of the current squad you have to pick from have been at the club for 2 or less seasons than that. When we talk about new look, these are the figures in particular. You've got, I think it's just under 2/3 are 25 or under. It's a young team who has not played a lot of rugby for the club they're playing for or played a lot of rugby together. But even with all that change that's taken place, and let's be frank, you know, you had guys who you expected to have in your team that are no longer there because of what happened through COVID. There are certain coaches and other jobs that are not in, people are not in the jobs that they were. That's fine. We're moving on from that. But are we starting to see your squad now? Obviously, you've made 3 or 4 additions in the last 2 weeks, 3 for next season, plus 1 for the short term. Are we starting to see a Steve Borthwick squad in terms of the kind of players you want?
Well, I think we're starting to see change within it, and I think that's the big aspect, because Leicester Tigers need to change. There's no doubt about it, and I think everyone's saying something, you might phrase it differently. But Leicester Tigers need to change, because the journey that was on was only heading in one direction. And I think inevitably, when you're trying to turn it around, something of this size, it's not one day it's heading back in the opposite direction. That ain't the situation. What we've got to be doing is, in each of our decisions, is consistently changing the direction of the team to where we want it to be, and being so we've got to be clear of that end goal and then prioritize what we need to do. Now the squad is changing. I've been open and talked about that. Have some of those changes been forced? Well, I think it's that period last summer, spring to summer, where the pandemic lockdown, then some players left the club that I hadn't anticipated would be leaving the club. So then you're recruiting quickly in a market where there wasn't a whole lot of players available. So you're looking around the world to try and find the right players to come in. I think in that nature, we've got to be trying to make those decisions as quickly as we can, but as robustly and as accurately as we possibly can. I think what we've then got to ensure is that long-term planning is also in mind. So that for me is the fact. Is the squad changing? It's changing. Where's it going to be in 2 years' time? It'll have changed somewhat from where we are now as well.
And then when you've talked a lot about experience, because to put it in context, you have got, now I know this is a bit of a sore point too, because Richard did steal your record as the most for most games with Premiership rugby. So I won't go too deep into it. You do like to say that you've played more minutes than him, though. If you do want to get that kick in, just remember to throw it in there. I'm all for having a go at Wiggy at any point. When you talk about experience, now he's played 6 or 7 games for Leicester Tigers, but he has played almost 300 in Premiership rugby. What I'm intrigued is, what's the difference in terms of his experience as an experienced rugby player, but actually his experience with the players he's playing alongside at Tigers? How much more valuable is it that Freddie Stewart and Jack Van Portfleet have played, 100 games together in the junior years and through, versus Wiggy's not played more than 10 with Freddie?
Yep.
What does that training time together, the social time together, put into that experience?
Well, I think we're looking at 2 different things. One level of experience is that situational experience. We've been there, seen this circumstance, you've seen a team, whatever it might be, you've had whatever situation specifically in a game is, what context it is, the team you're playing against, the game plan they're bringing, the game plan we're bringing, the referee, all those different situational factors that create a context. You look at somebody like Richard Wigglesworth, and there's nobody who's faced them more than he has, because he's played more than anybody else. He's also won more trophies than anybody else in English club rugby. So if you look in those factors, you start saying, right, that level of experience, we got that with something like Nemani Nadolo as well, that situational experience. There are players within our squad, and we've got a great crop of young players who haven't had that experience. You've got the likes of James Whitcomb, Cameron Henderson, Ollie Chesham, George Martin, JVP, Freddie Stewart, Dan Kelly. There is the second aspect I think we're talking about is that experience of playing together, so that relationship experience, that building combinations, that takes time. So the understanding there that Ben Youngs and George Ford have played a huge amount of rugby together. Now, when I watch them, I watched them when I was coaching England, you'd watch them, and there is something that almost there's a link that doesn't necessarily need a verbal communication between the two of them, because they understand in this situation, this is likely to be what I'll do, and this is where I'll be, and this is the type of pass I need. This is what we're going to create there. And by facing those situations so many times together, it's never the exact same situation, but they face it together. We haven't got that with this team yet, because of all the figures you've just discussed. Now, what we're trying to do is accelerate that as quickly as we possibly can, getting the players to understand each other and know each other, and then how we review. And I keep talking about this, and our supporters will have heard me talk about this, learning from each of those experiences to make it as quickly as we possibly can, because we need to maximize all those learning experiences to accelerate us on this journey. We're seeing the young players gradually get more experience. We're seeing this squad gradually come together, but we're trying to accelerate as much as we can, but there's only so much you can accelerate.
Has COVID made that harder? Because you don't, in the old school way, there was always the let's go to the pub, let's have a lock-in, whatever the old rugby version of it is. But there is some school of thought that through COVID, the guys have actually had to spend time with groups of 5 or 6 as well in their positions, and probably are spending more time with guys in their positions than they might have if they were just out and about with their mates.
Well, I think that the challenge has been, and I say this in the context of understanding that we're in a very privileged position in that we've been able to carry on with elite sport while many people have not been able to carry on doing what they want to do. So when I say this, I say it in the context of understanding that position, respecting that position. The one thing you want the players to do is understand a bit more about each other. How do they respond to stress? What makes them tick? What motivates them? What doesn't motivate them? How do you talk? And you find out a lot about that stuff, not on the rugby pitch. You find it out in spending time together, and you find it out on long bus journeys. You find it out by rooming together. Now, this situation, you can't go for a coffee together because that's not on the bus journeys. Everybody has to sit on separate seats because you can't sit next to each other. You can't room together in a hotel because of all the regulations. And I'm not saying those regulations are wrong. That's just what they are. So all those different things that you typically, and I know you talked about how you like having a lock-in.
It's Australian thing. Australian thing.
We haven't been able to have those opportunities. So what do? Do you sit there and bemoan those? No, you crack on with what we can get on with. Now, was this a position I thought we would be in when I was planning? No. Did I think we'd have this number of new players? No. Did I think we would be able to go for coffees together and social together? Yes. Did I think we'd have yes, all those things. Did I think we'd miss pre-season because we were locked out of our training ground because of the COVID pandemic? No, I didn't. But each of these things, you just got to get on with it. It's not, there's no point complaining. We just got to get on with it and learn as fast as we can.
Yes or no? You don't have to go into detail. Are you a fan of headphones on a bus, or should they be talking? Some coaches are always anti it, aren't they? Especially in football, you hear this coach say they should never have headphones on. Should always be talking, learning. Others are like, no, I'd rather than be quiet. I want to sit there in peace.
I think players have got the opportunity to do what they want to do. There'll be times where you want the players interacting, and there's times where you want players to be able to do what they want to do. So I don't think that in that case it's not one rule for everybody.
I won't ask you what kind of music you listen to then. Australian hip hop. When players are announced, whether they're re-signing or joining next season, this season, whatever it may be, you've mentioned within that you look at the character of the player as much as what they bring on the pitch. Now, you've talked about needing to learn fast, and Leicester Tigers is a club that was going down, needs to go up, has a bigger expectation than others, a huge supporter base, all these things. The easy fix would be buy the best players and not necessarily worry and just try and win. So why now? It might not be that that's the outside point of view. So when you say character, what are you looking for? What is it about a player that you're looking at when you're not talking rugby, or you might just be reading them when they're answering about rugby, what their responses are, what they talk about, what they ask you? What is it that you're looking at?
Firstly, make sure they don't have a hairstyle like you.
Wow. Seriously? Come on. Don't be jealous.
I think you gotta find out about people. When we're doing what we're doing, there's going to be good times ahead and there's going to be tough times, and you got to know that the people you with are going to be the people that are going to stick hard with it through those tough times. You're not going to go away. That's it. And you know, from my point of view, I know that when I went onto the field as a player and looked at my teammates, I wanted people who were going to go into battle. And if a player was a slightly less good player, but I knew he was going to go into battle every single time, then I'd take that player without question. So we need quality players because we're competing at the very top end. You want quality people as well. So I think you've got to learn about them. You've got to find as much information out as you can, do as much due diligence as you possibly can, so you understand what the player's about. I think the other thing from a coaching point of view, you need to understand what makes them tick. You need to understand why they want to join Leicester Tigers, what motivates them. That's an important part as well.
Is that the same for guys coming through the club? Because you might argue that the academy kids should already have that maybe embedded within them. Is it slightly different, or is it kind of one size fits all?
I make no assumptions. Make no assumptions. And I think one thing that now, you know, the society's changed a little bit and people are much more individual. You know, this is the thing that, you know, my extended family, they'd have worked in the same factory their entire lives. That's nature. You know, lived in the same neighborhood, the same streets their entire lives. Society's a bit different to that now. And so I think what you can understand is each person's different, each player is different. How do they need to be coached? How do you need to interact with them? What's the thing that motivates them? What's their goal? That's nature. But I think there's some real clear things that if you want players playing this team, they've got to be, they understand they've got to work hard. Like that, you've got to work hard. You got to run, and that's made very, very clear to the players. And do I expect us to be perfect? No, I really don't expect us to be perfect. Do I want it? Yes. But we just got to have an attitude that we are going to work and work and work. And in every experience, we've got to learn fast because we are behind all the other teams. So we've got to learn faster than them.
So ultimately what you're saying is you don't want someone sitting there with hair like mine, sitting there twizzling it on the sidelines while you scream, run faster, and they go, I'm good, to be honest, mate. I feel like I've done enough today.
I really couldn't care less about the hair, but as long as every player is different, and that's I used to play with a player called 𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗩, phenomenal player, absolutely brilliant player. But it was a learning experience for me where we were doing a forward session and 𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗩 was left-handed. And I turned around to call the call, and he's throwing the ball in right-handed because he was bored and he just wanted to try something, but wanted to challenge himself. And I turned around another time and he's pulled his beanie down over his eyes So he's throwing blindfolded. So he just waits for me to call the call and he just throw the ball. And I'm thinking, and the thing about him, he is that talented. He could do it. But I think that ain't quite the approach I would take. And, you know, the first time you go, right, then you realize it's just him. Now, when it was required, how hard he worked was, you know, just without question. And that's, I know I keep talking about it, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that's what we need first and foremost. We need to have that. And then, guys, I think what you can see is the players care deeply about this, about what they're doing. I think they care deeply, and I think they work exceptionally hard. And I think we will get better. We will improve with that as a foundation for us.
So if I did the interview like this, would that be I actually genuinely don't know where I'm looking now. I'm quite worried I'm looking elsewhere. But so those three guys, you've talked about them. It's all in the press release. As a final point on the new look squad, you know, next year, it's a genuine question is, are you done? Are they the only three guys that will join the club next season?
I think what we've got to ensure is that we are always looking to find ways to improve. That's improve our coaching, improve the squad, improve the way we train, improve facilities, improve our preparation for games, improve our analysis, improve how we review, how we set goals. The thing I would constantly look for, and I know at times that potentially is a message that I've reiterated, but I stand by it. And I go back to when you asked me about coaching. How do we move forward? How do we get better? And that's something we've got to continually do, because we're behind and we've got to move forward. We've got to catch up. And then secondly, because the other teams all are as well. They're all moving forward. So therefore you've just got to keep looking at every single day. How do we do it better? How do we do it better? Because this club deserves it for us to do better. Our supporters deserve that every one of us is looking at how we can get better, how we can move forward. We look forward to having our supporters back in the stadium, and I know that we care deeply about them. I want them to know, our supporters to know, that we are trying every day to get better. And sometimes you can see it. Sometimes it manifests itself and you see it, right, all right, there we go, we saw it. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but every single day we're trying to get better. So we're always looking anyway, how do we improve this team?
How pleased have you been from the cultural point of view that guys like, let's talk about Dan Kelly or Ollie Chessum or Cam Henderson or James Whitcomb, even JVP, when you arrived, they were in many ways timid young guys in a group with some real rock stars in world rugby. You know, a lot of these guys wouldn't have said kind of boo to a goose in many senses at that time. And now JVP's out running international and British Lions forwards around the pitch, and they're walking around with an air of confidence, but a confidence they've earned in many respects. Is that kind of a measuring stick for you of progress as well in this group?
Well, one, I think it's brilliant that we have got young players coming through pushing it. And I think if you start looking at, you look at James Whitcomb, Joe Hayes, Cameron Henderson, Ollie Chessum, George Martin, JVP, Dan Kelly, Freddie Stewart, and I'm sure I've probably missed one or two along on that path as well. You see some really good young players and good prospects. But the biggest thing I look for there is, what's the behaviours? What are they turning up and trying to get better? Are they learning? Are they desperate? Are they challenging me? Why aren't you picking me? That's the thing. Why in a training, trying to prove that I should have picked them. That's the standard I want. We want competition throughout this squad. And if we have that level every single day, we'll move forward.
You've said, so if we move into the final part of this conversation, that journey part of it, right? So you've been in charge for 20 plus games, but let's look more at the current season, because last season was a little bit of an enigma in many ways. With 2 games a week, you're running almost 2 kind of squads in 2 competitions, whatever it may be. Is there a marker that you want to get to in 6 months? Is there a level on on the table? Is there a certain amount of wins and losses, percentage, home games, away games, whatever it may be? Is there some form of marker for success? Now, it may be that you don't want to share it, but actually, is there a marker for success people can look for, hold the club to, hold the squad to?
So you got to always start with the end point in mind when you're planning. So I'm really clear about where we're going to be and when that needs to be, so time defined. Now, and then you work back a plan from that. Now, what we've had to be, as I talked about already, and we'll go back into the adaptability, because there's some things when you write that plan, that strategic plan, some things have changed in that time and you have to adapt it. But then as you work back, you're always looking at that you're bringing that big strategic plan into smaller blocks of what we're focused upon. So are we meeting the objectives, are we saying in that period of time? Now, am I here saying we have got this goal, this number of wins? I've always got objectives in mind. The thing I'm always conscious of is why cap them? Why say that is it? Now, I don't mean to try and limit what we're trying to achieve here. I think what I've said about is on a with the people at the club is a realistic timescale of where we need to be and what we need to do and the markers we have along that period of time. Now, what we do then is continue. What do we need to do today? What do we need to do today to get there? Then tomorrow, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? What do we need to do to keep going that? So I'm clear about the end in mind and then bring it all the way back to what do we need to do today to get better?
You've said pretty clearly that the players are on board with it. You've spoken about that along the way. The players have all vocalized their support for your plan and where that you're going. They're all in, everyone's feeling it in. Do you feel the same way? Now, this is a kind of tenuous question, but I asked the same of Peter and Andrea, so I'm going to ask you too. From their perspective, they feel like the relationship's much better between coach and executive than it has been. You can't answer for previous coaches or directors. That's fine. Do you feel fully and wholly supported in terms of your vision?
Oh, I think there's no question that. Now, this is what I've also been really clear about is that for us to achieve what we need to achieve, this is going to take everybody. It's not down to coaches or the players, this is going to take everybody. And one thing that struck me here since I came into Leicester is how passionate everybody is about the club. It's just incredible. And I mean that the supporters who write messages, to me, the letters I received, the board, the people who work around Welford Road, the people who work around Oval Park, it's just absolutely incredible. And that, I think, I feel privileged to be involved in the team in that regard. I think everybody just wants to see. I really believe that people do have an understanding of where the team is at. I think they do understand of how far the team has fallen, how the club has gone down. And I don't think anybody has the expectations this turns around overnight. But I do think they have an expectation. Things I do think that they have expectation of is that when the players go on the field, they see in the players' behaviours, the passion and commitment they want to see in a Leicester Tigers team. I think they do expect that the Leicester Tigers team fights all the way to the very last minute, win, lose or draw, they are fighting to the very end. I think they do expect to see a team that doesn't go away. I think they do expect to see a team that is trying to get better every single day so that then the next week they're better, the week after that is better. I think they do expect those things, and that's what it's saying. It's good because I expect it as well. And that, when I talk about those expectations, I think that's the same from the board, the supporters, the people who work for the club, the players, the coaches. And if we keep clear on that expectation, because those are the things there, that doesn't take an awful lot of skill. I'm not talking about skillful things there. I'm talking about a team that shows passion, that shows how hard they're going to work, a team that fights, a team that battles. Now, job is to ensure we've got good players. We've got players skillful. And we as coaches We need to help those players improve and develop to get even better. And if we keep doing that, then I think we'll get where we need to go.
And that, it may be that you just say yes or no here, but that you talked a lot about patience in terms of, and that's internal to a point, but you've said it externally as well. Is that your point around patience, that it's going to take time because there's so much to embed within the group about each other? Fans, supporters, partners, everything.
Well, I think with that, it's an interesting one because I'm probably one of the least patient people you ever meet.
I would definitely agree with that, just to put it on record. Yes, agreed. 100%. Was that what you were asking? No, sorry, go on.
When I was asked in that interview the other day, they said, how would you be described? And I said, oh, were you pretty laid back, relaxed? I think that's probably how they describe it.
Lies. You've lied to someone. That's fine.
I know you're going. I think I've got realistic expectations of what we can do. Now, would I want it to be faster? Yes, absolutely. Do I want us to get where I think we're going to go? Do I want it now? Yes. Can you do that? Can you just miracle it up? No, you can't. There's a lot of work we've got to do. But that's not to say, and I go back to what I said in the previous, when you asked me earlier, I'm not trying to put caps on the expectations. Like, I have incredibly high expectations, incredibly high. I don't accept losing. I don't accept, I don't accept going away. I don't accept not fighting. I expect the team to fight and fight and fight. And so we get better as fast as we possibly can. I'm clear on my expectations in that regard. So when I talk patience, I talk about understanding that we've got a lot of work to do, on a daily basis. What do I get on with? Doing the work. That's what we've got to do. We've got to get better, and to do that, it takes an awful lot of work. But I think I do see that people understand what we've got to do. That's the sense I get. I think they see that. So we'll keep getting on with it every single day. How do we get better?
Have you been really? I think 𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗩, when he re-signed, he spoke to the media after re-signing, and he spoke about one thing he'd noticed was guys like Matthias Moroni, 𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗩, Jack Van Portfleet, Tom Youngs, Dan Colt, everybody had a real passion for Leicester Tigers. Now, the three towards the end of that list are guys who are born and bred Leicester Tigers. They've only ever known Leicester Tigers. There's a almost second nature love. But Ollie spoke about how those guys like Moroni, Jasper, Nemani, they've all come in from various environments, places in the world, and immediately had a buy-in to Leicester Tigers. Now, without being disrespectful to fans or supporters, that's had to come without any kind of Matty Ollie Woods Welford Road Day. That's come without any fan interaction. So they're buying into what you're selling, if you will. Does that make you proud when you think those guys are immediately in? And, Moroni fights for everything, even off the pitch. He's a pest for things. Absolute pain in my, can't say the word, but he's just so passionate and wants answers, and it's great. But you must feel proud when you think they're buying in to what you're selling.
So Matthias is a good player, and he's a fierce competitor.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna do what we want this team to do, what we all want this team to do, we're gonna have to compete. We're gonna have to compete for everything. Are we gonna win all those? No, because there's teams that are ahead of us. There's plenty of teams ahead of us. So, but what we've got to do is we've got to compete. And I think that's a minimum expectation our supporters will have of us, is that we compete. And that's certainly something we drive and train every day. We want to compete. So, interesting. I don't necessarily have an answer to your question. You asked me, am I proud of it? I don't have an answer to that question, because it's what we expect. It's what I expect. We're not going to be perfect, but Craig, do we compete? Have we got to compete? Yeah, we've got to compete.
You're using the word expect. So it could be yes or no, and that's fine. Expectations when you came in of the job in terms of this journey versus, you know, the amount of change that's gone on, like we discussed, and you've handed out 20 plus debuts, whatever it may be. Is the job bigger than what you thought, even having chipped away at it for 7-8 months now?
I think that with everything that's changed since I agreed to join Leicester Tigers, I think that's probably pretty clear, isn't it? I don't necessarily reflect upon it like that, because what do? Have an end goal in mind, have clear plan for the journey. As you get more information, adapt your plan as you need to. Have clear expectations of how you're going to go about doing it and get on with it. And that's nature. In time to reflect about, was it different? Was it, did I expect this? It's kind of wasted thought for me. I've got plenty of time. I've got plenty of things I need to be spending my time thinking about and reflecting on things like that. Ain't one of them.
So before we go to the last question, let's be quick. Don't put, too many words behind it. I know you're a man of action, not words. Would you agree? That's fine. You don't have to agree or not. I'm saying it, so we're moving on. Tell me, you've said hard work. Tell me in 1-2 sentences, what is hard work for your team? What is hard work?
Extending ourselves beyond what we previously thought were our limits.
When you talked about resilience, certainly in the last few weeks, what is it that you're seeing that you're saying is resilient?
Team doesn't go away. I want a team that doesn't go away.
Okay, so as a final question, and more so to camera, to supporters watching, to anyone else watching, when you talk to fans and you've said, we're all in it together, and you've seen the support and it's been fantastic. You know what it was like coming as a player and a coach to Leicester and having to experience that, 16th man, if you will. What is it that their role is now moving forward? What is the role of Leicester Tigers fans, whether they're at Matty Hollywood's Welford Road, whether they're touring away with the team? What is their role moving forward on this journey that you talk about so often?
It's their role. I think it's really simple to talk about when we're at the ground. And I think as soon as our supporters are allowed back in that ground, I think that first roar is going to be enormous. And however many number are allowed in at that point in time. And I think that the players are going to see it. I was part of a team that played at Welford Road against Leicester, and we won. The team I was in won. We won by 50, and I watched and I saw the Leicester Tigers supporters clap their team off the field. Not because of police performance, but just it seemed to me, and I might be wrong, it seemed to me that supporters were showing the players that no matter what, they were always going to be there for them. They were always going to be there for them, no matter what. That, I thought, crikey, this is some set of supporters here. This is some set of supporters. And that day I didn't anticipate I'd ever be wearing the Leicester Tigers badge, but I am now. And I think, go back to that, this is some set of supporters. And so I go back, you can talk about the stadium, and I will at times. The other thing I think is that, what do I think the supporters, what do I ask the supporters is, they give everything to this team. And I was about to use the word unconditional, and it's not unconditional. It's not. It's conditional upon, and there'll be better ways, of people who are better with words than me, as saying this is conditional upon seeing a team that gives everything of themselves to compete and battle and work to represent their supporters with pride, to try and get as many wins as we possibly can. And it's a team that never, ever goes away. Are we going to win every game? No, we're not. We're not. Are we going to win more games? Yes. But I think the conditional support, I think our supporters want is to see a team that embodies everything that's good about what this club has been for so many years. This club's been tough, it's been hard, it's been seeing people who work, and I think our supporters expect that. So you asked me, what do I want from my supporters? I think that's the question. I want that support. I want that what I saw when I was a player against Leicester Tigers, was this is some support, some set of supporters this club has got, and we'll have a team that fights and battles and works in the way our supporters do in their lives as well.
Perfect way to finish it. There's nothing I can say other than, babbling on like I do. So thank you for joining me, because I know it is your day off. You're obviously not at Oval Park. You're not.
Mate, mate, you don't have days off, mate. I know you were. This is when it's not. This ain't. And when I've used the term work when I talk about hard work, this ain't work. This is a way of being that, it's not. It's the same as a player, but it's the same for you. I can tell. As much as you got terrible hair and like and an incredibly bad dress sense, as much as you like to sit in your office and be very antisocial to everybody else, this is you care. It ain't right. 5 o'clock comes and you switch off. This is it's your very state of being. This is every day you're thinking, how can we make this team better? So I was about to say that it's a pleasure talking to you. Obviously, it's not talking to you; it's talking to the supporters. So
it goes back, and I'll pick up on it, because it goes back to your privilege point, because it is. We could all be digging a ditch somewhere or clocking in 9 to 5, and realistically, we get a privileged living, so you may as well live it rather than just do it, if you will. That's about as philosophical as I get. And also, I'm quite well dressed today, for the record, but that's fine. We do have you on camera saying I'm a genius, but that's all we needed. And we got it in the better part of an hour. So it's fine. But nonetheless, thank you for joining us, even if it wasn't a pleasure for you. I say us, because then you have to say thank you back for everyone else.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.